These are not ordinary, unfortunate accidents. No, no, no. These are people who woke up, looked at a perfectly survivable Tuesday, and decided, you know what this day is missing? One absolutely catastrophic decision. Folks, let's talk about pets. Specifically, let's talk about a category of pet that society has, time and time again, said, hey, maybe don't. Tigers? Don't. Chimpanzees? Don't. Cobras? Are you kidding me? Absolutely don't. And today, we are adding another animal to the forbidden pet list. And you are not going to believe what it is. A camel. A baby camel. Cute, right? Aww. Look at the big eyelashes and the weird little hump. And those stupid floppy feet. Wrong. Meet Pam, a 60-year-old animal-loving Australian woman from Queensland. For her 60th birthday, her sweet, well-meaning husband decided to get her the gift she had always wanted. Baby camel. He literally went to a camel place, bought a baby camel, and brought it home as a 60th birthday present. Like, honey, surprise, it's a camel. And Pam, bless her heart, was thrilled. She raised it like a household pet, bottle-fed it, treated it like a giant fluffy puppy with a hump and an attitude problem, patted it on the nose every morning, sang it lullabies probably. Here is the problem nobody at the Camel Emporium thought to mention. Camels grow up, and when camels grow up, they mature. Quickly, by 10 months old, this baby camel was already an enormous, hormone-fueled teenager with absolutely zero understanding of personal boundaries, social cues, or the difference between person who raised me and potential romantic interest. One regular afternoon in the backyard, the camel decided the relationship needed to evolve. It knocked Pam to the ground, pinned her down, and, using its fully grown 1,100-pound body, initiated what zoologists very politely call mating behavior. Pam sadly did not survive being mistaken for a date. A camel expert later confirmed, for the record, yep, that was a romantic situation, which is the single most polite, most Australian sentence anyone has ever uttered about a tragedy. The lesson? When somebody gives you a baby anything that can eventually weigh more than a piano, just say no. Regift it, donate it to a zoo. Build it a habitat in a friend's yard, several countries away. Whatever you do, do not raise something that will, one day, swipe right on you with no awareness of how Tinder is supposed to work. Ladies and gentlemen, before there was Terminator, before there was Black Mirror, before Elon Musk was on Twitter warning us about AI, there was Robert Williams. Robert was a 25-year-old assembly line worker at the Ford Motor casting plant in Flat Rock, Michigan. Regular guy, punching the clock, doing his thing. The year is 1979. Disco is dying. The Walkman is launching. And a brand new piece of technology has just been installed at Robert's workplace. A 5-story tall parts retrieval robot. Now, in 1979, robot does not mean what it means today. There are no sensors, no cameras, no little voice that politely says, please stand clear. This robot is essentially an enormous mechanical arm bolted to a metal frame programmed to swing in preset patterns, completely blind, completely deaf, and completely uninterested in whether you happen to be standing in its swing radius. It is, for all intents and purposes, a giant automated mace. And it is doing its job all day, every day, in total silence. On January 25th, 1979, the robot is running slow. Parts are stuck up high in the storage rack. Robert, being efficient and tired of waiting, decides to do what any reasonable factory worker would do. He climbs up into the rack himself to grab the parts manually. You can see it coming, can't you? The robot's massive arm completes its scheduled rotation. Silently, smoothly, right on time. And it makes contact with Robert at exactly the speed and force that physics requires to end a human being's shift permanently. He didn't see it coming. He didn't hear it coming. The robot didn't even know it had done anything. The robot didn't have a doing anything awareness module installed. Robert lay there for 30 minutes before anyone noticed he was missing. And just like that, Robert Williams became the very first human in recorded history to be taken out by a robot. The first. Patient zero of the machine uprising. His family later sued the manufacturer and won $10 million, which in 1983 was an absolute fortune. But $10 million, while nice, does not undo your scheduled appointment with a 5-story silent murder arm. And murder arm is, by the way, the technical term I just invented for this segment. The takeaway? When a giant blind machine is doing its scheduled routine, do not climb into its workspace. Even if it's running slow, even if you're in a hurry, even if your boss is yelling, especially if your boss is yelling, let the robot have its lane. The robot will not yield to you. The robot does not care about your shift bonus. Imagine being a bull. You're chilling, just minding your business, living your best bovine life. And then, one day, a bunch of humans drag you into an enclosed arena, dress a guy in a sparkly outfit, and tell you to fight him for the entertainment of thousands of cheering spectators. You did not consent to this. Your agent did not negotiate this. You have zero upside in this transaction. The best case scenario for you is that you die in front of a stadium full of strangers. So when you finally win one, and I mean really win one, well, my friends, let's just say sometimes karma wears horns. Ivan Fandinho was a famous Spanish matador. One of the best of his generation, the man had survived hundreds of bouts with the most dangerous animals on 4 legs. He was fast. He was fearless. He was the kind of guy who would dance through a death sentence while holding a piece of red fabric like it was a pocket square. June 17th, 2017. A bull ring in Aire-sur-la-Dour, a small town in southern France. Ivan is in the ring with a 6-year-old bull named Provocito. Now, Provocito had a name that translates roughly to Little Useful One, which is exactly the kind of underestimating nickname you give right before someone teaches you a serious lesson. Ivan is doing his thing. The crowd is roaring, the cape is flowing, he executes a beautiful turn, and then he steps on the corner of his own cape. He trips over himself, the world's most prepared, most coordinated, most experienced matador in southern France, trips on his own outfit. He goes down. Provocito does not need to be told twice. The bull is on him in 2 seconds. The horns go in. Ivan is carried off the field, conscious. His last words, reportedly, to the medical staff, quickly, I am leaving. He was 36 years old. The bull walked away unhurt, and here is where the story gets weirdly beautiful. A few days later, a satirical Twitter account appeared online. The account was written as if the bull himself were posting from a Spanish farm. The bull thanked his fans. The bull mocked the bullfighting industry. The bull gave shout-outs to other bulls who had been less fortunate. The account went viral around the world. Millions of followers, mocking in real time the very institution that had put both of them in that ring. Moral of the story: if you spend your life provoking enormous animals with deadly weapons attached to their faces, sooner or later, statistics catches up with you. And the universe, on rare occasions, will get the punchline in too. When you get thrown out of an Australian bar at 2 o'clock in the morning, your options are pretty limited. Go home, get a kebab, pass out in a taxi. These are all acceptable choices. Climbing into a crocodile pen and trying to ride the largest reptile in the southern hemisphere? Not on the list. Has never been on the list. Will never be on the list. But that is exactly what one unnamed Australian gentleman decided to do in July of 2010 in the town of Broome, Western Australia. Our story begins, as all great stories do, with a man being thrown out of a tavern for being too drunk by Australian standards. Now, if you've never been to Australia, you need to understand, this is a very high bar to clear. It is like being told you're too loud at a Metallica concert. Our hero somehow achieved this distinction and was deposited onto the street to figure out his life. He wandered, he stumbled, and eventually he found himself standing outside the Malcolm Douglas Crocodile Park, closed for the night. Dark, quiet. Inside that fence, sleeping peacefully in his enclosure, was a 16-foot, 800-kilogram saltwater crocodile named Fatso. Fatso was a local legend, famous around town, beloved by tourists, the animal kingdom equivalent of a retired mafia don. Our hero looked at the 8-foot security fence, he looked at his options, and he made a decision that will live in infamy. He climbed the fence, he dropped down into the pen, he walked up to a sleeping prehistoric 55-toothed apex predator the size of a fishing boat, and he leapt onto its back like he was mounting a bull at the rodeo. Yeehaw, baby! Let's ride! Fatso, as you might imagine, woke up immediately, and Fatso was not pleased. The crocodile's tail, a tail that can shatter a man's femur with one swipe, knocked our hero across the enclosure like a beach ball. Then the jaws came in. Our hero, somehow, against all probability, managed to climb back over the fence. But the damage was done. The blood loss caught up with him within hours. Park staff arrived the next morning to find blood across the enclosure, a chunk of the man's shirt still on Fatso's back, and a very confused-looking crocodile who appeared to be wondering whether the previous night had actually happened or whether he had dreamed it. Moral? Hey, here's a thought. If you've been thrown out of a bar because you can't handle your liquor, maybe, just maybe, the next decision you make should not involve a 16-foot apex predator who eats wild boars whole. Just a thought. Just a thought. Time for a quick public service announcement. The Guinness Book of World Records is many things. It is fun. It is full of trivia. It contains the world's largest pizza, the longest fingernails, and the man who has crammed the most grapes into his mouth at once. But there is one category of record that the Guinness Book does not, has never, and will never recognize. And that category is buried alive for the longest time. Why? Because the second they certify that record, someone, and I mean someone, will attempt to break it. And that is precisely what happened to Janaka. Janaka was a 24-year-old amateur stuntman from Sri Lanka who had developed a deeply unhealthy obsession with breaking the buried alive record. The record that again does not exist. The record that nobody at Guinness has ever acknowledged. The record that, even if it did exist, would still be the worst record to break, because second place gets to live and first place gets to be measured from inside a hole. Janaka had practiced. He'd done a couple of 2-hour test runs and emerged victorious. Now he was ready for the big leagues. He was going to spend a minimum of 8 hours underground. On the day of the attempt, his friends and family, who were apparently very supportive in the worst possible way, dug a 10-foot trench. They had Janaka climb in and lay down. They sealed the trench with thick wooden planks. They piled dirt on top of the planks. And then they walked away, presumably to make sandwiches, while Janaka commenced his world record, not actually a world record attempt. 6.5 hours later, his mother, who, bless her, was the only person in this scenario with functioning maternal alarm bells, insisted they dig him up early. They opened the planks. They lowered themselves into the trench, and Janaka was sadly no longer responding to verbal cues. He was rushed to the hospital. The doctors confirmed what we all already know. 10 feet of dirt has very strong opinions about how much oxygen you get to enjoy. Lesson learned. The Guinness Book of World Records is a celebration of human achievement. It is not a to-do list. Don't try to invent your own category. E.S. Speculi, don't try to invent a category where finishing in second place means you live to try again, and finishing in first place means a backhoe. If the last story did not break your heart, this one will. Let me introduce you to Wang Gang, a 31-year-old Chinese man from Wuhan whose great love in life was not his wife. It was not his job. It was not his family. It was not even the city he lived in. It was a Korean massively multiplayer online role-playing game called Dungeon Fighter Online. For 7 months, Wang Gang did almost nothing except play this game. Let me give you a sense of scale here. 7 months is roughly 5,000 hours. The average full-time job in America is 2,000 hours per year. Wang Gang was clocking the equivalent of 2.5 full-time careers in his quest to slay imaginary dragons. He slept in 2-hour blocks at the keyboard. He ate at his desk. He showered approximately when his roommate threw a bar of soap at him. His wife begged him, pleaded, argued, cried, threatened. Eventually, she did the only thing left to do. She packed up their child, walked out the door, and started a new life. Wang Gang reportedly did not look up from his screen. The wife later told reporters he did not even notice. She had left for a full week. But Wang Gang was not going to stop. He had a quest. He had loot to grind. He had a guild. He had raid nights. The man had priorities, and those priorities were specifically arranged into pixels. His final session began at a local internet cafe in Wuhan. He sat down, ordered a series of instant noodles, and started his usual routine. Somewhere in the middle of a raid, Wang Gang slumped forward in his chair. The screen kept playing. His avatar took a few aimless steps and then stood still in a corner. The other players in his party probably typed, "WTF, where did Wang go?" in chat. Wang did not respond. Wang would not respond. The paramedics arrived and pronounced him on the scene. Cause? Exhaustion. Cardiac failure brought on by 7 months of basically zero physical movement, combined with a diet that consisted of approximately 95% monosodium glutamate. The other gamers in the cafe reportedly did not look up from their screens until his body was wheeled out. And honestly, I think Wang would have wanted it that way. The raid must go on. The lesson here, brothers and sisters, log off, stand up, drink some water, hug a real human. The pixels will still be there tomorrow. Your wife and your kid, not necessarily. Imagine you're inside an internet cafe. 24-hour operation. Dim lighting. Energy drinks lined up like the world's saddest soldiers. Every chair is occupied. Every monitor is glowing. The faint click-clack of mechanical keyboards fills the air, broken only by the occasional gamer screaming, "Get out of the bush, Karen," at their teammates. This is New Taipei City, Taiwan, January 2012. A 23-year-old young man named Chen walks in, pays for a session, sits down at a terminal, and boots up League of Legends. 10 hours later, Chen has his head down on his keyboard. 11 hours later, his head is still down. 15. Now I want you to understand the vibe of this internet cafe. Everyone, and I mean everyone, looked at Chen, hunched over his keyboard, completely motionless, and said, "Wow, that guy is really sleeping it off." For 9 full hours after he had, let's politely say, logged off permanently. Other gamers walked past him on their way to the bathroom, walked past him on their way to grab energy drinks, walked past him to go home, then walked past him again on their way back the next morning. Not one single person said, "Hey, has anyone checked on cubicle number 7? Cafe staff finally figured something might be wrong when they came over to ask Chen to pay for additional time, and noticed his arms had stiffened into the shape of someone holding an invisible mouse. Rigor mortis had set into his gaming posture. He had been gone for hours, and his final act on this earth had been to remain in the exact position he had occupied for the previous year of his life. The cause? Cardiac failure from prolonged exhaustion combined with the icy cold air conditioning of the cafe, which is cranked low enough to keep computers cool, but is, as it turns out, also low enough to keep a human heart from circulating blood properly. The really wild part of this story is not how Chen checked out. It's the fact that an entire room full of his fellow gamers genuinely did not notice. Not for 10 minutes, not for 10 hours, 9 straight hours. Karen got out of the bush before anybody noticed Chen got out of the chat. Lesson? If you go to a 24-hour internet cafe and you see somebody who hasn't moved in a suspiciously long time, please, for the love of all things holy, go tap them on the shoulder. They might just be locked into a winning streak. Or they might have already left the building. Permanently. October 2012. Deerfield Beach, Florida. The state where strange things happen for absolutely no reason. Tonight's strange thing, an eating contest. But not the kind you're thinking. We are not talking hot dogs at Coney Island. We are not talking buffalo wings at a sports bar. No, no. Tonight, At a reptile shop called Ben Siegel Reptiles, the menu is far, far more exotic. Tonight, you eat bugs. Live ones. The prize? A live ball python worth $850. The challenge? Eat as many giant Madagascan hissing cockroaches, mealworms, and superworms as humanly possible in a 4-minute window. The cockroaches, by the way, are the size of your thumb. They hiss. They wiggle. They are very much alive when they enter your mouth, and they are very much aware of what is happening to them. The roach has feelings about this. The roach is filing a complaint. Enter our champion, Edward Archibald, 32 years old, from West Palm Beach. By all accounts, a friendly guy who really wanted that snake. Edward went absolutely scorched earth on this contest. While other contestants were sort of nibbling and gagging, Edward was a man on a mission. He stuffed dozens of those hissing cockroaches into his mouth, chewed, swallowed, and immediately reloaded. Witnesses said he looked like a guy at a Vegas buffet who had just been told the line was closing in 2 minutes. When the timer ran out, Edward was declared the winner. He raised his arms in victory. He may have done a little dance. He celebrated. He was alive for approximately 3 more minutes. Edward staggered outside the shop, where his body, which had spent the last 4 minutes filing a series of strongly worded internal complaints, finally went on full strike. His digestive system rebelled. The roach parts came back up, and before he could clear his airway, he collapsed in the parking lot. The official cause of his exit was listed as asphyxia due to choking and aspiration of gastric contents, which is the medical way of saying the roaches won. The roaches always win. The roaches will outlive all of us. The python, by the way, went to Edward's family. So now they have a snake. A snake they did not ask for. A snake that is a permanent, slithering reminder that their loved one chewed $8 worth of cockroach per cockroach to obtain it. Moral of the story? If a competition involves eating anything that is still moving and making noise, the prize is not worth it. Even if the prize is a snake. Especially if the prize is a snake. Why do you even want a snake? Snakes are basically a parking ticket that bites. Listen carefully. If a fortune teller ever looks deep into your palm and whispers something life-changing is about to happen in Paris, your move is not to immediately go to Paris. Your move is to lock the door, close the blinds, and refuse all travel for the next 30 years. Did Odin von Horvath get this memo? He did not. And folks, that is exactly why he is on this list. Picture the year 1938. The Nazis have just rolled into Austria. Our man Odin, a sharp-witted, award-winning Austrian playwright, wisely flees to Amsterdam. Smart move. Survival instinct firing on all cylinders. 10 out of 10. Then, one afternoon in Amsterdam, he decides, for fun, just a little entertainment between fleeing fascists, to visit a fortune teller. Now, a normal person hears, "Pick a card, learn your future," and walks away. Odin sits down. He gets his palm read, and the fortune teller, with maximum dramatic flair, tells him, "Go to Paris. The greatest event of your life awaits you there." Now, imagine the buffet of possible interpretations of greatest event. Marriage, a film deal, winning the lottery, finally finding a truly excellent croissant. Odin, of course, picked his favorite from the menu. Career breakthrough. He boarded the very next train to Paris like a man who had just been promised the moon. June 1st, 1938. He meets a friend on the Champs-Élysées to talk about a film project. The weather, however, is doing a thing. A massive thunderstorm rolls in. Lightning cracks the sky open. Most people would run inside. Odin, the optimist, ducks under a giant chestnut tree. Yeah, you see where this is going. A bolt of lightning splits a massive branch loose from above. That branch comes down, 100 pounds of solid wood, weaponized by gravity, directly onto Odin von Horvath's head. He was 36 years old. The fortune teller had been correct. Technically, the greatest event of his life had indeed happened in Paris. 2 takeaways here. 1. When a stranger predicts your destiny based on the squiggles of your hand, the correct response is polite laughter and a slow exit. 2. Never, ever take shelter under a tree during a thunderstorm. Trees are basically lightning rods that occasionally throw furniture at you. And as for the fortune teller, she, presumably, retired comfortably on the strength of that one read. This next one is delicate, folks. I'm going to navigate it like a man tiptoeing through a minefield made of YouTube monetization. Stay with me. Sergey was a 28-year-old Russian car mechanic. Fit guy, confident guy. The kind of guy who, after enough vodka, becomes absolutely certain he can do anything. And one fateful evening, in the company of 2 female friends and a remarkable quantity of alcohol, Sergey made a wager. He bet 100,000 Russian rubles, about 4,300 American dollars, that he could keep both women entertained, romantically and athletically, for 12 straight hours. No breaks, no timeouts, no let me pop out for a snack. 12 hours of competitive marathon-grade enthusiasm. Now, Sergey, being a problem solver, looked at this challenge and thought, I am going to need a little chemical assistance. So he reached into the medicine cabinet and pulled out the famous little blue pills. The kind your spam folder is always trying to sell you. The kind that come with a warning label that begins with the words, consult your physician. Sergey did not consult his physician. Sergey took 30 pills, an entire bottle, in one sitting. Listen, I am not a doctor, but I am pretty confident that 30 is, at minimum, 29 too many. The 2 women later confirmed that Sergey did, in fact, win his bet. He went the full 12 hours. He earned every single one of those rubles. And then, as they were counting out his winnings, Sergey suddenly stood up, clutched his chest, made the universal "this is bad" face, and his heart, having performed the cardiac equivalent of running back-to-back marathons through a burning building, simply punched out for good. He collapsed right there, holding his winnings. He did not get to spend 1 ruble. The women later told reporters, and I quote, "If we had known what would happen, we would never have agreed to the wager," which is sincerely the most polite thing anyone has ever said about that situation, in any language. The moral, my friends, when somebody offers you a bet that involves both pharmaceutical experimentation and a 12-hour time limit, fold your cards, walk away, order a pizza, watch a movie. Your heart will thank you. The pizza place will thank you. The 2 ladies in the story will also, in retrospect, thank you. This next story is, sincerely, more tragic than it is comedic. But it earns its place on this list for one specific reason. The level of resort negligence on display here is so spectacular, so deeply criminally lazy, that it deserves to be remembered every time you book a vacation. January 2024, Sonora, Mexico, a luxury beachfront resort. Picture the brochure. Crystal clear water, marble floors, the kind of swim-up bar where the waiter remembers your order before you sit down. This is the vacation you've been saving for. This is the dream. Meet Jorge and Lizette Guillen, married couple from Texas. They had just put their kids to bed back at the room and decided to enjoy the resort's private jacuzzi together. A romantic moment, a little wine, a little chill. The kind of memory you build a marriage around. Lizette steps in first, and immediately she starts screaming. The water is electrified. Now here's the thing. The brain takes about half a second to process what is happening when your wife is screaming in a hot tub. And in that half second, your husband instincts override every single safety circuit in your body. Jorge does not think. Jorge does not calculate risk. Jorge jumps in to get her out. Big mistake. Heroic, but a mistake. The current that had been zapping Lizette is now coursing through both of them. Lizette, in a stroke of pure dumb luck, is thrown clear by a wave of the current. She survives, with severe burns, but she lives. Jorge is not so lucky. The current pins him underwater, and he stays there electrified for nearly 10 minutes before resort staff finally figure out which breaker controls the jacuzzi and cut the power. Now here is the part that should make your jaw drop. Hit the floor and roll down the hallway. Subsequent investigation revealed that this resort had been flagged by safety inspectors multiple times for over a year. They were warned. They were warned and warned and warned again that the jacuzzi was a death trap, and they did nothing. They kept renting it out to families with kids on vacation. Jorge Guillen, devoted husband, devoted father, paid the price for a resort that had been told in writing that their hot tub was a problem. Moral of the story, when you book that vacation, read the reviews. Read all the reviews. The ones from last year, the angry ones, the ones with photos. And if anything sounds even slightly sketchy about the electrical situation, find another resort. There are a million beaches in this world. There is only one of you. If you ever find yourself in a religious service and the preacher says, "I have an unusual proposal," that is your cue to immediately exit the building. Through the window if necessary. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just go. Please. Run. In 2015, in the rural Mutoko district of Zimbabwe, 5 men did not get this memo. They went to see Pastor Shamiso Kanyama, a charismatic local faith healer who claimed direct radio contact with the Almighty. Their families were sick. They needed a miracle. They came to the right guy. Or so they thought. Pastor Kanyama listened to their problem. He stroked his beard. He looked toward the heavens. And then he announced his solution, which I want you to hear in full, because the absolute audacity of this idea is the best part of the story. His plan was, Pastor Kanyama, was going to be buried alive. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, under actual dirt. The reason, he needed to absorb the power of the earth, because that, apparently, was what God needed him to do in order to heal the sick. And then, get this, and then he was going to resurrect himself from the grave. Like Jesus, except scheduled. With a clear time slot, RSVPs encouraged. The 5 congregants looked at each other, looked at the pastor, looked at the shovels that were about to be handed to them, and they said, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Pause for a moment and appreciate that. 5 grown adults voluntarily agreed to bury their spiritual leader alive because he asked them to. So they dug a hole. The pastor climbed in and laid down. They covered him with dirt as he had instructed. And then they all left to go pray, because apparently a man performing a self-funeral does not require supervision. Hours later, when they returned to dig up their freshly recharged spiritual leader, the man was no longer making the suggestions he had been making earlier. The earth had indeed absorbed something. It was not pastoral wisdom. It was, in fact, the pastor. The 5 men were arrested and charged with assisting in his, let's call it, unscheduled departure. They insisted in their defense that they were simply doing what the pastor had told them to do, which is technically accurate, and also extremely telling about how church can sometimes feel a lot like multi-level marketing. Moral of the story? When your spiritual leader requests that you dig him a hole and bury him alive, politely decline. Offer him a glass of water. Suggest a nice nap. The resurrection chapter never quite materializes the way the brochure promises. We are going all the way back, past your grandparents, past your great-grandparents, past the existence of the light bulb. Picture this: rural Ireland, 1869. The American Civil War wrapped 4 years ago. Henry Ford is a 6-year-old farm kid in Michigan, and the automobile, as we know it, will not exist for another 25 years. But somewhere on a country lane in County Offaly, history is about to be written and rewritten in the worst possible way. Meet Mary Ward, brilliant scientist, naturalist, microscopist, the kind of Victorian woman who published actual peer-reviewed papers while everyone around her was busy fainting into ottomans. She was so respected that the Royal Society, a club that didn't even let women in the front door, quietly bought multiple copies of her books. Mary Ward was, in every sense of the word, A genius. She also had two cousins. Two cousins with a hobby, and that hobby, building a homemade steam-powered car in 1869 in their backyard with their own hands. Now, when your cousins invite you for a joyride in a vehicle they personally welded together in the carriage house, the correct response is absolutely not. And also, please seek therapy. Mary's response was yes. Yes, please. Sign me up. So there she is, riding atop this massive iron contraption, hissing steam from every joint, rumbling around the family estate at the breakneck speed of approximately brisk walking pace. The car hits a bump in the road. Mary gets jostled, she loses her balance, and she tumbles directly under the rear wheel. That wheel weighed about as much as a small horse. Mary did not walk away from the encounter. Congratulations, Mary Ward. You are officially the first person in recorded human history to be done in by an automobile. 25 years before the gasoline engine. 40 years before the Model T. A full century before seatbelts. Mary, you weren't ahead of your time. You were ahead of an entire field of safety regulations that did not yet exist. The lesson here, when your relatives build something with their bare hands, ask one simple question first. Does it have brakes? If the answer is brakes, what's a brake? You walk home. You walk home, you have a nice cup of tea, and you let your cousins figure out their toy on their own. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we close the book on tonight's 13. And there you have it. 13 of history's most unforgettable contributions to evolution. 13 people who proved, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the human brain is capable of magnificent intelligence, and also of decisions so spectacular that they end up on a YouTube list more than a century later. So what have we learned tonight? Do not raise a baby camel in your backyard. Do not climb into industrial robot workspaces. Do not trip on your own cape in front of a bull. Do not wrestle prehistoric reptiles after last call. Do not bury yourself for clout. Do not lose your marriage to a video game. Do not ignore the gamer who hasn't moved in 9 hours. Do not enter competitions involving live hissing insects. Do not shelter under trees during thunderstorms. Do not take 30 pills for a $4,000 bet. Do not trust resort jacuzzis without reading the reviews. Do not let your pastor try out new self-veneral techniques. And finally, do not ride in cars your cousins built in their garage. Ever. For any reason. If you made it this far, that means I haven't completely scared you off the human race yet. That is a win for both of us. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about people who really push the boundaries of personal decision-making. Smash that like button if your faith in humanity is somehow still intact after all of that. Ring the notification bell because we drop a new episode every week and you do not want to miss the next batch. Trust me, I'm already researching it and the next list is even worse. And drop a comment below. Which of tonight's 13 stories made you yell at your screen the most? Which one had you slamming the rewind button? I read every single comment, so do not be shy. Until next time, stay smart, stay subscribed, and remember, the gene pool has lifeguards now, and they are tired.